عذراً بيروت.
Good afternoon on this August 11th. You're watching Future Television. I'm Yumna Naufal, and these are today's headlines. Iran's Foreign Minister Mohammad Jawad Zarif expected in Beirut to stress the Lebanese officials that Tehran's stance towards Syria and Hezbollah has not changed. At least 25 rebels killed in an ISIS attack on an insurgent stronghold in Aleppo, Syria. And Yemen loyalists seized the town Utma in their latest advance against rebels. Good afternoon to our viewers. Iran's Foreign Minister Mohammad Jawad Zarif is expected in Beirut any minute now to stress to Lebanese officials that Tehran's stance towards Syria and Hezbollah has not changed. According to diplomatic sources, they told a Jamhuriya daily that Zarif will send a clear message to the parties claiming Iran will turn its back on Syria and Hezbollah, and that Tehran continues to back its allies in the region. Many critics have said that a nuclear deal signed between Iran and major powers in Vienna last month will lead to a change in the Iranian stance. During his two-day official visit, Zarif is expected to meet with Speaker Nabih Berri, Prime Minister Tamam Salam, Foreign Minister Jabran Basil, and Hezbollah Chief Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah. In addition to his talks on the deal, Zarif is expected to discuss with the Lebanese ways to improve bilateral economic cooperation, where Lebanon can benefit from Tehran in that regard. Saudi Arabia's foreign minister turned down Russian calls to join forces with the Syrian authorities against Islamic State jihadists, insisting it was impossible to work with President Bashar al-Assad. Moscow, one of Assad's few remaining allies, has called for coordination between the Syrian government and members of an international coalition fighting the extremist group, which controls many of the territories in Syria and Iraq. But Saudi Foreign Minister Adel al-Jubeir insisted there would be no cooperation with the Syrian regime after meeting Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov in Moscow. Jubeir commented that a coalition in which Saudi Arabia would participate with the government of Syria should be excluded as it is not part of their plans. Saudi Arabia is already part of a U.S.-led coalition that began an air campaign against ISIS in Syria last September. Russia supports Assad while Saudi insists he must quit to help end a 4-year-old conflict now that has cost the lives of 240,000 people. Environment Minister in Lebanon, Mohamed Mashnou, says he will resign if he finds a compelling reason to do so, adding that he will not be going anywhere until then, and rejecting calls for him to step down because of his inability to find a sustainable solution to Lebanon's waste management crisis. Thousands of protesters rallied in downtown Beirut over the weekend to demand Mashnou's resignation. Activists from the #YouReek campaign, who organized Saturday's protest, made speeches attacking the government for collecting waste just for people not to see it and then dumping it in valleys, under bridges, and in bus stations. The speeches also denounced the childish solutions proposed by government to end the crisis, including exporting waste and creating more landfills. Instead, the campaign called for sorting trash out, selling recyclable waste, and treating organic waste in existing facilities. Mashnou also revealed that the state will announce the consortium that won the bids to manage Beirut's waste in the upcoming few days. Free Patriotic movement leader Michel Aoun is reportedly signaling that Wednesday is the day for his supporters to take to the streets in protest if the ongoing dispute over the controversial extension of top army officers' terms is not resolved. Jamhuriya is reporting that the FPM members have been studying and coordinating possible street protests at Aoun's residence in Rabie. Security sources downplayed concerns over possible protests, telling the Daily that the FPM lacks the ability to mobilize a large number of supporters and stage demonstrations across the country. Kanaan also criticized those blaming the FPM for the presidential vacuum and the current stalemate in the cabinet and parliament. A decision by Defense Minister Samir Muqbil last week to extend the terms of Army Commander Jean Ahwajeh, as well as Chief of Staff Walid Salman and General Mohammad Khair, the Secretary General of Higher Defense, for 1 year has enraged Aoun, who has been pressing that the government appoint new military and security chiefs. At least 25 Syrian rebels were killed in an ISIS attack on an insurgent stronghold in Aleppo province. Fighting lasted until dawn this morning in Marea, one of the most significant rebel bastions in the divided province. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights say at least 8 ISIS fighters died and 4 suicide bombers who blew themselves up with explosive belts. ISIS jihadists seized full control of Hush on Sunday, one of 4 villages in the northern province of Aleppo that lie along a rebel supply line from Turkey, which is a major backer of Syria's opposition. At least 37 rebel fighters and 10 ISIS jihadis died in the battle for the town. More dead, at least 47 people killed and nearly 100 wounded in 2 bomb attacks in eastern Iraq, underscoring the continued threat from ISIS militants in a province previously considered freed of them. The continued threat from ISIS militants in this previous considered freed of them, at least 40 people were killed and 72 others wounded when a car bomb exploded in a marketplace north of the city of Bakuba. Furthermore, 7 people were killed and 25 wounded in a separate blast to the east of the city. There was no immediate claim of responsibility for the attacks, but they came less than a month after a bombing claimed by ISIS in the nearby town of Khan Bani Saad, which left more than 100 people dead. Still in Iraq, well, the parliament has unanimously approved Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi's reform program aimed at curbing corruption and reducing government waste, but it sparked widespread anger and weeks of protests. Parliament Speaker Salima Jubouri says that 297 out of the 328 members of parliament attended the session. Abadi's drastic proposals to immediately eliminate the post of vice president and deputy prime minister were approved by the cabinet on Sunday. The plan also calls for the elimination of political and sectarian quotas for senior officials, for increased oversight to prevent corruption, and for services to be improved, among other measures. Protesters have rallied against the poor quality of services, especially power outages that left just a few hours of government-supplied electricity per day. Coming up next, Malaysia is to send a team to the Maldives to inspect debris possibly related to MH370. Stay with us, we'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching the 420 o'clock news on Future Television. Saudi-backed forces loyal to Yemen's exiled government have seized a town south of the rebel-held capital in their latest advance against Shia Houthi rebels. The Popular Resistance Committee seized the town of Utma overnight, about 100 kilometers south of Sana'a. The town is in the Shia-majority province of Dahmar, next to Sana'a, where the Iran-backed rebels have held the capital since September. Loyalist forces also seized 6 towns in the mountainous central Ib province, where local tribes have been clashing with the Houthis for months. Backed by a Saudi-led coalition that has been carrying out airstrikes since March, pro-government forces have been battling for months to restore exiled President Abd Rabbu Mansour Hadi to power. Rival Libyan factions were set to resume peace talks after a partial deal was reached last month, but hopes for a lasting ceasefire remain dim without the support of key power brokers. The negotiations at the United Nations in Geneva are being hosted by UN envoy Bernardino Leon, who said the accord signed in Morocco on July 11th was an important step towards ending 4 years of deadly chaos. The deal was backed by members of Libya's internationally recognized parliament based in the eastern port city of Tobruk, as well as members of other political parties, civil society, and local officials. Japan has restarted a nuclear reactor for the first time since the Fukushima disaster in 2011, as the government is seeking to reassure a nervous public that the industry is now safe with the new safety standards. Prime Minister Shinzo Abe and much of Japanese industry want the reactors to be switched on in order to cut fuel bills. However, a majority of the public is opposed to the move after the nuclear crisis triggered by the earthquake and tsunami 4 years ago in March 2011. Kyushu Electric Power began the restarting this morning on the #1 reactor at its Sendai plant, about 1,000 kilometers southwest of Tokyo. The 31-year-old reactor was expected to reach full capacity around 11 p.m. tonight and would start generating power by Friday. A company spokesman said that commercial operations are to begin early next month. Abe says only reactors that were deemed to have cleared the world's most stringent regulation standards would be allowed to restart. And Malaysia says it will send a team to the Maldives to inspect debris found on the Indian Ocean archipelago to determine whether it might be related to missing Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. Malaysian Transport Minister Leo Cheong Lai said that the team will carry out an initial verification to establish if any of the debris is from an aircraft. He also cautioned that it is still too early to speculate on whether this debris is in any way connected to MH370. The discovery late last month of part of an aircraft wing on the French island of Reunion in the Indian Ocean intensified interest in the hunt of remains of Flight 370, which disappeared in March 2014 with 239 people on board. Malaysia says the wing part, known as a flaperon, has been conclusively confirmed to be from the missing Boeing 777, but French authorities overseeing the analysis of the object say that strong evidence to support that belief is still needed, and they need to do more tests to be absolutely sure. Greece and its international lenders have secured a multi-billion euro bailout agreement, raising hopes aid can be disbursed in time for a major debt repayment falling due in just a few days. Greek officials say that they expect the accord to be ratified by Parliament on Wednesday or Thursday and then be vetted by Eurozone finance ministers on Friday. This would pave the way to aid disbursements by August 20th, when a 3.2 billion euro debt payment is due to the European Central Bank. Such an agreement will close a painful chapter of aid talks for Greece, which fought against austerity terms demanded by creditors for much of the year before relenting under the threat of being bounced out of the Eurozone. And on that note, we end our bulletin for today. Let me remind you of the headlines. Iran's Foreign Minister Mohammad Jawad Zarif expected in Beirut any minute now to stress to Lebanese officials that Tehran's stance towards Syria and Hezbollah has not changed. At least 25 rebels killed in an ISIS attack on an insurgent stronghold in Aleppo, Syria. And Yemen loyalists seize the town Utma in their latest advance against rebels. Those are your Tuesday headlines live here on Future Television. Signing off, it's Yumna Naufal. Have a good night.